I was a good student up until year 6. And then and my interest in education started to dwindle. The home life was getting really bad. My mum and dad were on the verge of breaking up. It had been many years of real hardship, and my dad had to go. I was getting into, early teen adolescence, and I was starting to fight back. I wasn't going to take it anymore. And it started to get really chaotic at home. So my dad left when I was 13 and disappeared, never saw him. Well, I saw him 12 years later after I started to become successful. I was 26. I'd already won the Apprentice. He showed back up again. Funny that. But he passed away last year, which is sad. And I wish I'd had a better relationship with him. But it is what it is. And I think in life, without my dad being the way that he was, I wouldn't be the man that I am. And I have a little boy now, and he's 2.5 years of age, and I love him to bits. And I will always be his greatest provider and his greatest mentor, and always there for him. So you take the lessons that life has to give you, right? So we can only move forward. So I started to go off the rails big time. I didn't want to listen to anybody. My dad had left. I was young. I was out in the street. I was hanging around with the wrong crowd. I didn't want to listen to any type of authority. And I did everything I could to exit school. I'd go to school on one bus, I'd get off it, and then get on the bus and go back to where I came from. So I got expelled when I was 14.5 years of age. And in actual fact, it was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I was done in education at that point. I was a disruption to the teachers and the rest of the students. So the reality is I shouldn't have been there. I was ready to go into the working world. And I was very lucky that, I've always, there was a man in my life from a very young age. And I think this is an important one to share. And it was my mum's brother. And my mum's family and my mum's brother had come from nothing, and he'd been a very, very successful corporate entrepreneur. Yeah, in the late 80s, early 90s, he was taking big 6-figure salaries, and he'd got MD roles and so on and so forth. So he was living a fantastic life, and he would come to my domain, my world, maybe once or twice a year, and I'd see this guy that would walk in. He was 6'4". He was tall, he was strong, he was in a suit, he walked with confidence, he had a big fat wallet, all of the time. And wherever we went, he seemed to be able to buy whatever it was that I wanted. So I was hooked on that character very early on. And I thought to myself, that's the guy that I want to be like. And I'm a big believer that success leaves clues. I teach and train businesses how to scale, and I look for blueprints, and I train and teach blueprints to the businesses that I work with, because for most of us, unless you're building a unicorn business, it's already been done. And so the hard work's already been done, the successes and the failures, and it can be learned from other people. So I looked at my uncle and said, well, I want to be like you. And I looked at my dad and I thought, I don't want to be like you. And I realized that there was a different path that I could go down. And so when I was 14.5, there was a local guy. He was 25 years of age. He was a good-looking guy. He was well known in the area, and he had a plumbing business. And his plumbing business, and in the town that I grew up in, being a tradesperson, okay, getting into a trade, it was a skill for life, and you could earn fantastic money. And this guy had a great income. He had a nice BMW. He had a beautiful girlfriend. And he had everything that I thought I wanted at 14.5 years of age. So I said, right, Darren, let me come and work for you for free for 1.5 years. And when I turned 16, put me into college and then start paying me, and I'll go through my plumbing apprenticeship. He did just that. He said, yeah, no problem, come to work. And then overnight, I went from the worst student to the best employee. This guy became like my dad, and he was the father figure and the mentor that I needed at that time to keep me on the straight and narrow, and gave me a great opportunity. I delivered for him, worked very, very hard. And at the age of 16, he put me into college, and that's where my journey back into education began.
When you first started your business, how did you feel before you started your business, and what made you start becoming an entrepreneur? Where did the entrepreneurial mindset start from as well?
Okay, great question. So when I was in college, the aim of the game was to become a qualified plumber, right? As an apprentice, I don't know if anybody in this room's done an apprenticeship, but you get paid very low wages, okay, with the promise that when you qualify, you get the big bucks. And it was £80 a week, and when you qualify, you were going to get a decent amount of money, so that seemed like a good way in for me. You got to work and learn. So when I qualified as a plumber at 18, I thought that, right, okay, this is good money. It's not as good as what I thought it was going to be, but the gas engineer is the main guy in this space, not just the plumber. So if I want to get even more money, then guess what I've got to do? I've got to keep educating myself, and I've got to keep leveling up. And this has become a theme in my life, where I always chase the next level, but I understand that it's the personal development and it's the investment in myself that is the key to getting to that next level. And so I went straight into the training for gas engineer. And by the time I was 19, I was a qualified gas engineer. Fast forward 2 years, I'd been doing the job for since I was 14 now, and I was doing this job as a gas engineer, making £50,000 a year. And it was a great salary, and I was doing really well, and I'd hit a good income. But I found myself doing the same job every single day. And I'd reached the pinnacle of what a gas engineer could earn and do in that marketplace. And, you know, I'd always had the dream to go to Australia, to travel and go and see the world. So I'm quite an impulsive guy. And when I make a decision, it happens quickly. And I would say sometimes that I've got it wrong and I've made the wrong decision and I've been too hasty. But in a lot of cases, my ability to pull the trigger with no fear in the hope and take the risk that it's going to get me somewhere better has been an asset. And I think as entrepreneurs, as business owners, if we want to get to the next level, we've got to be willing to take a risk. Okay, you got to shoot big and you got to aim big. You got to dream big. You also got to know that sometimes you can miss big. Yeah, and that is also a consequence of success, is failing. And you have to be prepared to lose. And, you know, when we get to a bit further on in my story, you'll see a scenario where I shot big, I lost big, but actually it's some of the greatest lessons that ever happened and has allowed me to become even stronger as an entrepreneur. So I went to Australia for 6 months, had an amazing time. Has anybody traveled Australia in here? Yeah, fantastic. A couple of people. You guys will know the famous spots, yeah, what it's like up the East Coast. It was amazing. It was freedom. It was just everything a 21-year-old could have asked for. Had a fantastic time. But after 6 months and of running out of money and drinking way too much alcohol and having too much party, I realized that I needed to come back and I was ready to build. I'd got it out of my system. But like many people, I came back and I got straight back into the job that I tried to escape from. I'd gone backwards. And, you know, 1 minute I was on the Gold Coast, the next minute I was back in Peterborough, you know, on the tools, doing the job that I tried to run away from. And I realized that something had to change. Now, I'm a big believer that results go where energy flows. Seek and you will find. But you have to put a lot of effort, energy, and attention into that goal and that destination. And the law of attraction will bring it to you eventually if you are patient. And 4 to 5, 6 months later, my mum got me Lord Sugar's autobiography for Christmas. Now, have we got any Apprentice fans in the room? Yeah. Hopefully everyone, yeah. And so my mum got me Lord Sugar's autobiography for Christmas. I'd always been a major fan of the show. And being in the trade and living in a small town, I'd always been idolizing this aspiration of being an entrepreneur in London. A guy that was in a car with a driver and wearing suits and being in the big buildings. That was my vibe. That's who I wanted to become. And so, you know, every time The Apprentice went on and you'd hear that music, it just would ignite a fire in me to be great. And so I think a law of attraction did into my life very, very early on without even knowing what the law of attraction was at that time. But then my mum got me Lord Sugar's autobiography. It's called What You See Is What You Get. I'd highly recommend the book, but it's about that thick. And I hadn't read a book for, you know, at least 15 years. And I don't know what it was that made me pick it up. But that bit between Christmas and New Year, there was a 2-week period where we had annual leave. And I read it cover to cover, and I remember picking it up and I was hooked after the first page. And I was staying up, no joke, for 8 or 9 hours till 6, 7 in the morning, just reading this book. Excuse me. And all of a sudden, I was changing. I was stumbling across the permission to be great. And what I mean by that is, I spent my whole life believing that success was only for a certain few. And that if you wanted to create wealth, you needed to have already come from the right town, the right family with the right education. And somebody like me was never going to make it big. All of these excuses that we place in front of who we can become, and all of the stuff we tell ourselves, maybe because we're scared of who we can become. I think we're more scared in a lot of cases of the potential that we have rather than actually failing.
Brilliant, brilliant. And the mindset, because you obviously come from a world of a little bit of darkness. You've seen quite a lot, and you didn't finish school. But what was the mindset change, and how did you handle that? Did you just keep going and saying, like, it's similar to a lot of people say, actually, whatever happens to me, I don't care, I'm a man, I'm just going to continue going? Or was it something more self-development focused that you were doing?
Okay, cool. So starting my first business, I realized two things. Number one, I wanted to make more money. And number two, that I could do it better than the company that I was working for. Anybody had those thoughts in the room? Yeah. Most entrepreneurs, most business owners. And one thing I didn't realize at the time is that I knew nothing about running a business. But I'd made the mistake of following the wrong blueprint. And I took this £15,000. I'd bought a van. I'd bought some business cards, gave them out because this is all I knew about marketing at the time, right? I gave those business cards, I got them off Vistaprint, okay, and I gave them out to my family and friends. And then on Monday morning, I sat on my van and looked at my phone and the phone wasn't ringing. And I thought, blimey, where am I actually going to get some customers from now? I've got the rest of it, but I've got no customers. And I realized very, very quickly that this game was no longer about being a great plumber. And this game was about becoming a fantastic sales and marketeer. Two fundamental skills that I believe every business owner must possess. And if you don't like sales and marketing as a business owner, you better get to like it because it's what grows and drives any type of business. And whatever you're doing out there, it is about selling yourself, your business, your dream, your ideas, your journey, your end goal. You got to sell people to come with you. You got to sell investors to back you. You got to sell suppliers to supply and give you credit. Okay. All of these elements come from that core sales skill where you're getting people to follow you. And I started the business because, like I said, in the early days, I knew that £50,000 a year wasn't going to get my mum into retirement. £50,000 a year wasn't going to build me the life that I wanted. And so I wasn't even selfishly thinking about my mum myself at the time. I was thinking more about my mum. I was like, I've got to make some wealth here to be able to take care of her. That's the number one priority. And so I just went on a crazy, when I started my business, I was just obsessed. I can't tell you how obsessed I was to get to this destination and to put my mum into retirement. So that was the drive. I don't fear failure. I've never feared failure. I didn't fear risk. People around me feared the risk for me. I didn't fear the risk. And what you're going to experience as time goes on and as you climb and grow as entrepreneurs, and you've probably experienced it in your own journeys many times, I'm sure, is that you back yourself. But just because you back yourself, it doesn't mean that those around you will. And sometimes the people that we need to back us, our loved ones, our partners, our parents, our friends, they're the ones that hold us back the most. And they don't usually do it maliciously. They do it through love, and they're afraid for you. But they're afraid for you because they can't do it, not because you can't do it. And as I grew as an entrepreneur, I realized that you've got to be careful who you get your advice from. And I use the analogy that my mum had to cut a penny into four. That was how she came up. That's how she lived for many, many years. So she was not very she was completely risk averse. She wasn't a risk taker. She never borrowed money. She never leveraged finance. She didn't understand that world. And I have a lot of billionaire mentors and a great billionaire network, and I am going to become a billionaire. That is my number one mission, okay? I want to help 1 billion people. I want to change this world, and I know wealth is going to help me do that. I don't want the money for me. I want the money to help others. But I go to my billionaire mentors for billionaire advice, and I go to my mum for parenting advice. If I went to a billionaire on how to be a great parent, they probably never saw their kids growing up. So I don't ask them that. And I also, vice versa, don't ask my mum how to become a billionaire because that's not her game. So just make sure as you grow and the circle that you have around you is that you're conscious who you're getting advice from. And I stopped asking people or telling people what I was doing because in a lot of cases I didn't get the response that I was after.
The Apprentice.
Yeah.
How did you get in out of 16,000 candidates? And how did you feel to win it?
Okay, cool. So how did I get in? Well, number one, how do you guys think I got in?
Sales.
Persistence. Sales.
Knowing the producer.
Knowing the producer. That would have been a smart one. I didn't have that hat, but something crazy. Let's give that lady a round of applause. Something crazy. One of my statements was, I want to be like Hugh Hefner. I want the girls, the cars, and the money. Yeah? That was on the application form. And they called me on it after. Okay, and Lord Sugar asked me that in the boardroom. Who's this Valentino wants to be like Hugh Hefner? And, you've got to stand out. You've got to get attention. You've got to know the game that you are playing. Did I manipulate that process in my favor? Absolutely. I played it like an absolute boss. Okay. First and foremost, I played it well by knowing what to say on the application form because you've got to stand out. They're reading thousands of them, 60,000 applicants. And so we always get frustrated with these apprentice candidates when they say nonsense stuff. Okay. And the fact is, in the early stages, you have to say it to get on. Yeah, so I said things like that. I said I was the godfather of business. I was here to teach Lord Sugar enough. I was here to give Lord Sugar an offer he couldn't refuse. Okay, I saw all of this stuff, right? All of these cheesy lines that worked. And I'll tell you one of the scenarios that made me extremely uncomfortable, but, was a real lesson for, again, understanding the game that you're playing. So when you go and you do a whole day in London, that's application, that's the first part, and you go through 4 stages, and they whittle it down from 60,000 through that process to about 3,000. Then you have to go back again, and they put you in rooms of 50 people. Let's say we were all standing here right now. There would be 5 cameras lined up, 5 producers, and they'd say, right, everybody line themselves up in order of best looking from best looking to worst. And everybody had to sort themselves out. So where did you think I went? Straight to the front. I was wrestling with Miss Hong Kong 2007, okay? And she said, I'm way more better looking than you. I said, not right now, you're not. Get out of the way. Yeah. And then I remember walking by and somebody said to me, oh my God, you're pathetic. And I said, nobody's going to remember your name. And this person had lined themselves up towards the end. And they didn't understand the game that they were playing. Now, I'm clearly not better looking than Miss Hong Kong 2007. Okay. But the fact is, I understood that they wanted a character that was willing to stand out on the screens. So I played the game very well. I understood the game. And in business, in entrepreneurship, in the market, in the economy, it's a game, isn't it? You don't set the rules. My uncle told me very early on, Joseph, there's one thing you can't control in business, my friend, and that's the market. What you can control is what you do when the market changes. And so I understood the game. And I got on the show. And then again, I understood the game of the show. I went on, I had a mustache, I had shaved sides, I had a 3-piece suit, and I'd gone on as this kind of playboy, jokery character. And at this point, I had a £500,000 a year plumbing business. I built it up from scratch since 22 to 25. I had 8 employees. I'd work 7 days a week, 100 hours a week. I was a hustler. And I knew that level of business at the time. I'd learned £500,000 a year business, right? And so I went into this process and they thought that there was a joker and I knew that I wasn't. And that gave me an edge. Yeah, because they underestimated what I was going to do. And then as the process went on, I evolved as this character and I was watching the story, the producers paint this story of good, bad boy gone good. In the interview stages, I shaved off my mustache and I slicked back my hair and I said, this process has really changed me. So I understood the game I was playing, and it worked perfectly. And winning that show was validation that I wasn't crazy. For a big part for me, it was validation that my big dreams, and that when I tell those big dreams to people and they look at me and they say, they laugh in my face, that I'm not crazy, okay? And that I can do anything that I say I'm going to do. And it set me on a course to believing that anything was possible for me. My confidence skyrocketed. Because if I can do that, I could do anything. Because I remember when I was applying for the show, I used to sit for hours in bed. You're hired, you're hired, you're hired, you're hired. And I just ran this scenario, this visualization, and it came true. And I needed that to give me the confidence to go on and win. But listen, business is a competition. The markets are tough. And you've got to back yourself. And you've got to believe that it is possible. First and foremost, you have to believe. And it can come true. And winning that show for me was like my Premier League win. It was like my, championship fight. It was the biggest competition in business. And I love to compete. And then, Lord Sugar became my business partner. He bought half of my company for £250,000. And I only started that business 3 years ago off the back of reading his book. So it was this crazy story that had connected. And yeah.
Have you ever felt the same way since winning the Apprentice? And Emperor, what happened to it?
Okay, cool. No, I haven't ever felt that buzz. And I went on a mission to find it. Yeah, again. And so I wrote a best-selling book, Expelled from the Classroom to Billionaire Boardroom. I sold about 5,000 copies. I launched 2 podcasts to get them to #1 in the world on iTunes in business, and I did that. I got into Forbes 30 under 30 at 28. I applied for every single award I could win. I went on this massive rampage to expand my business, to just validate that I could build a monster. And I was searching for that feeling again. Because, what I've come to learn is what goes up must come down. Yeah. And you aren't up constantly. And there was a period through my 20s where everything I touched turned to gold. There wasn't anything that I said I couldn't do, and I didn't do it. Until the day that the universe said, you've got way too big for your boots, and we are going to teach you a lesson. I genuinely believe that. And I took that business. In 2017, I was the first apprentice to buy Lord Sugar out. I'd built a 7-figure maintenance company, yeah? So we were doing about 1.5 million when I bought Lord Sugar out. I was 27 years of age, and I'd been running Impra for about 4 or 5 years. And with mentorship and investment, you've got to be really clear on what it is that you're looking for. Are you looking for money, or are you looking for mentorship, or are you looking for both? And when you bring an investor on, you've got to know and be clear on exactly what you want for them. And just because they're giving you money, it doesn't mean they're going to be able to give you the mentorship. And if you want that, just make sure that you get an investor that understands your market, that understands your industry, your sector, or you will end up realizing that their knowledge has a ceiling. And I learned that with Lord Sugar and his team. I thought in my early years that being a billionaire meant that you were a master of all business, and that, you were going to be able to guide and advise on all business. And very quickly it became apparent that they didn't know the home improvement sector. The team that I got was mostly financial, FDs and accountants that were effectively protecting his investment rather than helping me. There was no sales, marketing, strategy, operations, planning. It was trying to lock down costs and keep me under control effectively. And I found that quite difficult, because that's not what I went in for. I went in for mentorship more than the money, really. And I didn't get that. So whenever you go to a board meeting too many times in a row and you feel like you are the person that has to provide all of the answers, then you realize that you don't have a partner here. You're reporting to somebody. And I was not liking the mix. Okay. I'd taken the investment. Okay, I'd had the exposure from the show and I'd got all of the knowledge that they could help me. And they helped me build a better financial infrastructure, better accounting in the business. Because, you know, when you're a trades business owner, or many business owners don't know accounting and understand their financial infrastructure, reporting, cash flow, break even, margin, you know, and all of that type of stuff. They haven't quite got a grasp of that yet. And I didn't have a grasp of that for the first couple of years in my business. I was just so focused on selling the service, delivering the service, selling the service, delivering the service, hoping that in the background it might connect up and I might make some money at some point in time. And I thank them because they brought me into the world of accounting and made me understand that business is all about numbers and that without the numbers, you don't know your business. And so I became obsessed with learning finance. And, you know, I've had some really fantastic financial people work for me and I've got a really good understanding of that now. But I knew that I'd run out of advice and I wanted to expand. I aggressively wanted to expand. I didn't want to stay in the sector for too much longer. And when I started the business, my goal was, and I think it's really important to have an exit strategy. Yeah, does anybody in this room have an exit strategy in their business right now? Yeah, you got to know when you're getting out because you got to know what you're actually building towards. And I do think that the ultimate goal for any business owner is to become redundant from the business. And even if you don't exit, if you build for making yourself redundant, then you have an operation that works without you in it. And so I wanted to build national and I wanted to exit. And the whole thing that inspired me on Lord Sugar's story was that he'd built this Amstrad empire and a lot of it was in his late 20s. And so I was sold on the fact that I was going to become the Lord Sugar of the boiler world. Yeah, and I wanted to build this beast of a business. But they wanted to hold me back. They didn't want me to grow. And I'm sure it was probably because they were afraid of the risk. So I approached him. I said, listen, I've had enough of coming here every single month and reporting to you. Unless you're going to help me and you want to help me build national, then this partnership needs to be over because I want to go and build national. I understand you're afraid of the risk. So let me get out now while the business is in good financial health. And if it fails, it's on me. And you've washed your hands of it. And he agreed. He said, nobody's ever spoken to me like that before. And he came back to me and said, you know what, Joseph, I'll let you go. Good luck. And that's where the partnership ended. At the time, I had nearly 40 staff and I'd only won the Apprentice 2 years ago. And this had never happened before. So it was a very ballsy move that I'd made here. And I had to get my team and my people fully on board to be able to back me. Thank you very much. Perfect timing. And then so basically, fast forward to 2019, I take an Impra to the largest boiler installation business in the UK. We had 100 staff. We were doing £1 million a month in direct sales, 6,000 boiler installations a year, and I was operating in every major city in the UK. I'd killed myself to get there. I'd spent every pound that we had to get there. I'd built a monster of an organization that was extremely operationally cost heavy. And it was fragile because it was built on direct sales effectively. If the market's strong, we sell. If the market stops and my sales stop, my cash gets hit hard because I hadn't got any further rounds of investment. That was probably my biggest mistake. And I thought, well, I'd had such success growing it from 2017 to 2019 and the sales just kept growing and the cash flow kept coming. I thought these sales can never stop. And this is always going to be the way now until... Go back to 2013 when my uncle said to me, Joseph, if the market changes, the winters were getting warmer. 2019 was an extremely warm winter. I'd expanded into Glasgow, Wales, to Cornwall. Okay, our head office was in Peterborough. I'd gone to every corner of the country. And some of those cities really stopped performing. I spent a lot of money to get there. I had all of the layers of middle management and infrastructure cost underpinning it all. And then November 2019, we had forecasted 1.3 million and we did, I don't know, something like 500,000. We had about 800, we were behind by 800,000 in cash. And this had never happened though. It was like every sales month had grown and grown and grown. So I wasn't expecting it at all. And then we took such a massive cash here. I had no further investment. We weren't really profitable at the time, so it didn't look great on paper anyway. And so it was a scenario of, holy shit, we're going to go out of business in probably 8 weeks if this carries on. And I couldn't cut the cost quick enough. I'd leveraged a lot of good, positive cash flow and credit to be able to scale. And I needed to find an immediate recovery scenario. There was a couple of things. Number one, I was so burnt out. I wasn't the best version of me. I actually wanted out, really. I wanted to quit. I'd probably given up at that point because I'd given so much to get there. And, that is a consequence of putting all that pressure on myself. I didn't need to grow that quickly. I grew because I probably wanted to prove a point to Lord Sugar. And it was the wrong motivation. Yeah, fueling the growth. I wanted to go national, but that probably clouded my decision making. And so I had 8 weeks to find a solution. So I knew the suppliers, I spoke to them and we were going to do a debt for equity swap, and some were backing it, some weren't backing it. I told them we were running out of time and I couldn't quite get the deal agreed. I found the business recovery specialist. They agreed to buy the business. They agreed to take on all the staff. They agreed to take on all the contracts. They agreed to take all of the supplier debt. And then they and this was over Christmas, worst time ever. Everything shuts down over Christmas. And on the 10th of January or the 4th of January, I was going to have run out of money. Okay. And they knew the scenario that I was in. They promised me that they were going to buy the business and take on everything else. And come the day of signing, the guy turns around to me and says, actually, we've changed our mind. And what we're going to do, Joseph, is we're only going to take the brand, the assets, the staff, and the contracts, but you're taking control of the debt and you're going to shut that down and that's going to sit with you. And at that point, my number one priority was my staff. Yeah, they were going to get to keep their jobs. So I thought, best of a bad situation, this isn't too bad. The customers are going to get to keep their warranty and their contracts, and these guys will set up a new co that's going to trade with the suppliers so they can recover some of this lost money. But at 30 years of age, I found myself shutting down this shell of a business, okay, with £2 million worth of debt. My company was pretty much gone overnight. I had very little out of that business on that deal, and my business was gone. In business, you don't know what you don't know. And at the time, I didn't know what was coming. Okay. When you build a business at that scale, that quickly, you only can protect yourself to a certain level. And I had shareholders that had the wrong motivations. I had people around me that had the wrong motivations. I was getting wrong advice from the wrong people for the wrong reasons. And I was very burnt out. So my judgment was very clouded. So basically, that was what happened, and that was I'm 34 years ago. I'm 34 years of age now, so I'll tell you about the next 4 years in a moment and what I've been doing since. But that was a tough pill to swallow, and at that stage, I found myself down and out. Has anybody in this room failed in a business? Raise your hands. Yeah, it's not a nice scenario. Yeah, and I failed on a public level. Not behind the scenes. And very quickly, the papers picked it up. And it went in the Sun, it went in the Daily Mail, it went everywhere. Apprentice winner, because I sold part of the business and I shut part of it down, but the tagline they chose was Apprentice winner's business goes bust. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, this legacy of success that I had created for myself was tarnished by these headlines that are still out there in the marketplace that I knew I didn't have the firepower to fight.
What did you do to get back up, and how did Trade Mastermind start?
Okay, cool. So basically, from January, early Jan was when I exited completely, and I found myself, going from working 7 days a week, 14 hours a day, to having nothing to do. Severe depression kicked in for about 2 weeks. Didn't want to turn on my phone. Didn't want to speak to anybody. Didn't want to get out of bed. Locked myself in my apartment. My personal relationship fell apart with the partner that I was with. Had to move out that house, move towns, moved into an apartment. It was all, pretty rough. And I remember being in my apartment, just so annoyed at myself. I was so disappointed that I'd let myself down. I didn't do anything unethical. Okay. I didn't cheat anybody. I didn't steal anybody. I steal from anybody. Our business, as any business that goes into liquidation, gets inspected by the insolvency service. I didn't get struck off as a director. We passed and realized that we did no wrongful trading. And so I was just so disappointed that I'd let the people that wanted to see me lose, and many people did. You know, all of a sudden, when you put yourself in a TV show and you become a success overnight, and everybody knows who you are, all of a sudden the people around you start to hate you for some reason. I don't know why. A lot of people turned on me, and all of those people wanted to see me lose. And I was more angry at myself that I'd given these people the satisfaction to laugh. But what I knew deep down, and hopefully the next part of the story inspires any of you, that if you're afraid to fail, you can get back up. Okay, I realized that they wouldn't be laughing for long because Joseph Valente wasn't finished. Yeah. And I was searching for a story, a failure story of somebody that had been able to bounce back. And when I started to look, I realized that many of these 50, 60-year-old entrepreneurs that had done so well had failed many times, and that this was the norm. And in actual fact, now they're so successful, you don't hear about it. But if you dig deep, you know, they've been through lots of it. And so that made me feel a little bit better, but still didn't quite give me the motivation to get back up. And then the gentleman that had been so prominent in my life returned, Mr. Lord Sugar. I went online and he retweeted one of the articles that said Apprentice winners' firms gone bust. And he said, you can't win them all. That was what he tweeted about me. You can't win them all. And I can't tell you the anger, okay, but also the fire that was lit inside me at that moment. I jumped out of bed and I said, right, I'm going to show you how great I am. And I'm going to come back so fucking big, okay, that you're going to see what I'm made of. And in the last 3.5 years, I've entered into the training and development space. I realized that actually most business owners fail because they don't know what they don't know. And many trades business owners have never learned about business. I've been very lucky to learn great things about business and built a fantastic company. And so I launched a venture called Trade Mastermind. And I've been running that business for 3.5 years. In April, we had our first 1.2 net of VAT £1 million month. That's now an 8-figure training business in 3.5 years. And I went into training and development not knowing the sector. I pioneered training and development in construction. As an entrepreneur, the best businesses are built out of solving real life problems, and I've clearly tapped into one. Of all of these business owners that haven't got a clue how to run a company and are struggling every day because they're running it with the skills that they were good at the job using. And so I've entered into this space. I've dominated this space. I have 50 staff now. We have a 10,000 square feet offices and a bespoke training center. We're teaching about 350 trade businesses a month coming through our training center in Peterborough. And it's been a hell of a journey to get back to another 8-figure business. But, you know, I'm comfortable telling this story now. For the first year and a bit, I tried to hide it. I didn't know if I was coming back. I didn't know if I was capable. I questioned myself every day if I was a one-trick pony. I had all this imposter syndrome. How on earth can you go and teach people how to run a business when your business flopped? Yeah, and I was being reminded of that on the ads that I was running by 100 people every ad. Yeah, who does this guy think he is coming back in? The audacity of the guy, not knowing that the greatest mentors are the ones that have lived through failure. I'd much rather have a mentor that teaches me what not to do than teaches me what to do. Because the hard part is not success. The hard part is losing it all. The hard part is failure. That costs time, money, emotion, okay, and all of those things that are wasted in the negative side. So I look for people that can prevent the downfall and also help me climb at the same time. So I knew deep down that this thing was going to work. And now those people that were on my ads by the hundreds have all disappeared. And they see the success that we've had and they don't say anything anymore. And I don't say that with any arrogance. I'm pleased that I have people out there telling me that it can't be done. And don't fear the haters. Don't fear the naysayers. Don't fear those people that want to see you lose, because many people do. And use them as the fuel to ignite the fire inside you that is going to get you to go and do great things. And what I've come to learn is success isn't guaranteed and failure isn't final. Thank you very much.
How does it feel to go from £10,000 a month to £250,000 a month to then 1.2 million? So how do you handle that?
There's a video with Robert De Niro and a couple of others that does the rounds on TikTok.
Things, just be calm. When things are going well, be calm. Don't think you're on top of the world in the sense. You always got to be wary, because I've seen it. I've seen people come. I've seen people go. I've seen them come. I've seen them go. You got to be chill. You got to just take what's good in your life and move forward cautiously and carefully.
Just be calm. The 20-year-old version of me, when things are going well, thought that, this is never going to end. The 34 version of me knows now to be calm. And, one good month doesn't make a great business. And, you've got to continue to show up every day. And one of my mentors, Alfie Best, he says to me, all that you did, Joseph, and many people have done it, is you started to believe your own hype. The one thing I never wanted to lose, and I hope that nobody does, because this is really important, is that you lose the belief. Because, when you fail hard, it can hit hard, and your confidence rock bottoms. And, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go again. So what? It's water under the bridge. You got to find a way to pick yourself up. And I've come to learn that on those dark days, everyone wanted to be my friend when I was an Apprentice winner and I was on my way to the top. And very few people wanted to knock on my door when I'd lost it all. They're all coming back now. That's funny though, isn't it? Yeah. They all come back out of the woodworks and want to get to know you. Again, all of those people, when you're on the way back up. I knew that I was on my own. It's me versus me. I don't need anybody else to validate me, to help me, to push me. Okay, of course we need great people, but the first person that you need is yourself, and you've got to have that belief. And I understand my ability. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. And one thing I do know is how to scale businesses. And at every level of growth, your business needs to evolve. Your business needs to change. Yeah, Netflix has that famous sign that says, we started in DVDs, keep going. And people try and scale the same model. My biggest mistake in Impra was the model I took to 7 figures, I took to 8. But it couldn't survive as one product line at 8 figures. It needed multiple product lines. But I didn't diversify quick enough. But usually what happens in trade specifically is people diversify too early. A small business will open up and start offering 5 or 6, 7, 8 services, and they've got a couple of resources and they can't possibly deliver. So I'd learned and tapped into the niche of the riches are in the niches, okay, and that scaling one product to 7 figures is the right thing. But when you get to 7 figures, £1 million is about the right time that you need to start adding product lines to scale. Okay, and then you want to introduce new product lines, and that should take you to 8 figures and beyond. There's a great book by Michael Masterton called Ready, Fire, Aim. I don't know if anybody's read it. 0 to 100 million, but I'd highly recommend that. And it talks through the 4 stages of entrepreneurship. 0 to 1 million, 1 million to 10, 10 to 50, and 50 and beyond. And it will talk you through all of the challenges and things that you're going to come up against. And I think that would be very helpful for many people in the room. But I intend to take this business to 2 million a month by September. I want to get it to 100 million in the next 2.5 years. And I am going to exit big. I am going to exit big out of this business. And I see that as my stepping stone to create a big leap in wealth. And then hopefully set me on path to this billionaire journey that I want to take on. There's a saying that I love, and that is, an atheist says, show me and I'll believe. God says, believe and I will show you. Who in this room's got wild dreams? Raise your hands. Yeah? Okay, dreams that only you can see in most cases. And a lot of people are going to tell you that those things can't happen. But you have to believe that they are going to happen. And if you put your faith in God, if you put your faith in the universe, if you put your faith in yourself, these dreams will 100% come true.
Your team.
Yeah.
How do you manage them? How do you motivate them? How do you keep them going? How do you get them to the £2 million mark?
Okay, so who knows Ben Francis Gymshark, the story, yeah? So one of the things that he says is, from 0 to 10, there can be no opinions. One person calls the shots because you don't have time for discussion. From 0 to 10, yeah? And so I listened to that and I thought, you know what? He's absolutely right. And as you grow a business, okay, and when you want to scale a business, somebody has to be accountable if you want to grow quickly. And so I'm quite bullish. I run my businesses hard. I expect results. I want to grow quickly. And I don't mess around. I don't want to use the word dictatorship. Yeah, but in some cases, from the outside in, it probably looks like that. And it's not because I don't want opinions. At the pace that we are growing, sometimes I can't afford to listen to those opinions. And I think I give everybody a fair opportunity to contribute. So, I don't know how good of a picture I'm painting here for those people that don't like my style. But the fact is, in a business that you're trying to drive high performance from, and my business is high performance, okay, we have a call center that drives bookings, that fills out discovery days. So every day, every minute, every hour counts, right? Because we're hitting real tough KPIs that need to be delivered. So you can't run that business softly. It's not the type of organization. So I'm a hard performance driver. I give people a lot of time and attention. I think I'm a great mentor. I don't take any shit, and I get results on a day-by-day basis.
What advice would you give these guys around what you've done so far?
Cash is king. Cash is king. Growing a business costs money. So where are you going to get it from? There's two ways to get finance. Well, there's a couple of ways to get finance, but it's private investment. You're either borrowing that money, okay, or you're going to get it through driving sales. And you've got to understand where that cash is going to come from. If you want to grow, you've got to understand how you're going to fuel that growth. And I'm pretty good. I mean, I built Trade Mastermind with no investment. It's an 8-figure business. I've taken 0 investment to grow this company. Okay, what I have done is I started with £1,000 an hour coaching product in 2020. Yeah, and my first 20 clients paid me. So look, I went from nothing. Okay, I went from an empire to nothing. Within 3 months, I'd had Trade Mastermind doing £100,000 a month. In 3 months, from a startup. Okay, in lockdown. I started in January 2020, and I was going to do an events business, and I started putting money into marketing to fill out events. 8 weeks later, the market changed again. And all of a sudden, this event model that I'd been following, that many trainers and personal development entrepreneurs in the UK have, that opportunity disappeared. So I need to think on my feet, and I needed to think on my feet quickly. And so in lockdown, I started running webinars. And in the middle of lockdown, in an hour and a half, I was selling a training course for £1,000, teaching business owners how to build a sales strategy, and I was selling 25 of them in an hour and a half. Yeah, I had no overheads. I had 3 staff. I had very little marketing budget, and I was probably pulling £20,000 profit every hour and a half, okay, out of the business. So very quickly, I was able to sell my way to cash flow. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah, I generated the cash flow through driving sales. And because I've spent millions and millions and millions of pounds on marketing, on all of the platforms from Google to paid leads to social media and more, I understand what platforms work, at what cost per lead, at what cost per acquisition, where the volumes are and what type of audiences are there. So I know where to put the money. Because in marketing, it's about knowing where to put the money. And many business owners, they get a marketing budget, and marketing's a lot of trial and test, okay? A lot of trial and test. But you really want to, you want to try and test on small budgets. You always want to try and test. I'm still trying and testing. I spend about 100 grand a month on marketing at the moment, on paid leads. And I know which platforms work, and I also understand the return on investment. And so you've got to build products that are viable, that cash flow positively, okay, against what it costs to sell the product. What is the cost of acquisition? How much do you sell it for? What's the margin on that product? And then if you get it right, and training is a great business because it's an information-based product. So once you've made it once, you can sell it 10,000 times. There's no cost to build. Okay. So, it was a very profitable first stage of that business, meaning I could generate lots and lots of cash flow, and I knew to put it back into marketing, and I knew to put it back into sales. Now, fast forward 3.5 years, my average order value of my training product is £25,000. I don't sell anything cheaper than £20,000 now. Okay, and all of it is a 12-month training program. I could still sell £1,000 courses, but it costs me on Facebook to generate a customer £500. I'm only going to make, £500 in profit. That's without factoring any delivery, service, overheads, rent, and so on and so forth. So I would rather find a way to increase the order value. I like high ticket, high margin product. It's the easiest business to run, because there's lots of free cash flow, okay, and there's lots of profit to be able to reinvest. And I think if you get your product and service right, and you evolve your product, because it went from webinars, then the world opened up again, then I went into events, it became a 3-day event, then there was a mastermind off the back of that 3-day event, then there was a 12-month academy, okay, and now there's a whole array of products and services off the back of it. But you get your products and services right, they will help drive the cash flow, but you got to understand the cash flow. And also, you got to understand what the operating model is. You got to get the operating model right. Yeah? Strategy, operating model, execution. Most people understand the product that they have and the problem that they want to solve. Okay, and they got a rough idea, maybe, of how they're going to sell it into the market. But then they know that getting the execution piece is all about getting the results. But this is the bit that takes time, is getting the perfect, repeatable operating model. So you have a systemized and scalable and people-driven business. And once you nail into that, and where we're at the moment right now, we have a perfect, repeatable business model. Yeah, and the more money that we spend on the ads, the more we fill out the events, and the more events we run, we know our conversion rate, and the business is just growing. Yeah, we're about to expand into all business. There's 300,000 construction businesses in the UK, and I know that all businesses don't, in most cases, know how to scale up their businesses. Okay, and so moving into that market now opens up a 5.2 million size market in the UK. And so that's where the next wave of expansion is going to come from.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm going to open up to the audience for anybody that has any questions. Start with Adam.
Thank you very much for so many people putting their hands up, by the way. That was quick.
That was extremely motivating, man.
Thank you.
How important is reminding yourself daily, like daily motivation in the mornings? Because you seem like the type of guy who's pumping themselves up, like you said, law of attraction.
Yeah.
Do you have like a morning routine, like a process to pick yourself up on the days you don't want to do it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Straight
away, the second that I wake up, YouTube goes on. I'm a David Goggins type of guy. Anyone know David Goggins? Yeah. I'm a David Goggins type of guy. I'm a Grant Cardone type of guy. Who else do I like? I like to just type in, no fear or become a beast, or I use those keywords in YouTube, and I just get some, mix match compilation of just anything is possible for you. You can run through walls type stuff. And I need that for the first half an hour to an hour, because I don't wake up every day motivated. In actual fact, I wake up every day knowing that I need to change my vibration. Yeah.
Where did that self-belief, self-confidence came from? You saw, well, Lord sure doesn't have anything I don't have, so I can definitely do the same thing or even more.
So great, fantastic question. Yeah, and yourself. And I think when you've got nothing to lose, it's an easy decision to make. When you've got nothing to lose, it's an easy decision to make. I mean, look, I on my last birthday, I ordered myself a clock. And I set the clock 66 years into the future. Okay? And every day in my office, it counts down. I intend to live to 100. Yeah? So it's counting down from 100. And I was stood in front of my people in my office, and I did a birthday speech. And I said, I've just got a clock that's going to tell me when I'm going to die. Yeah? And everybody looked at me like they do a lot of, who is this guy? What's he talking about? Again, I've just got this clock. And the reality is, it's the perfect reminder that time is not on our side. And the one thing I fear is waking up, well, not waking up, but being in my deathbed, okay, hopefully many, many years from now, hearing boop, 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 and thinking, I didn't go for it. That scares the shit out of me, more than losing. The fact that I didn't live my potential, because we got one shot. Has anybody heard? Hopefully this isn't lowering the mood, yeah? Hopefully it's inspiring, okay? Has anybody heard Steve Jobs' final speech? Yeah? Go and listen to that on YouTube, and he'll talk you through all of the regrets that he had. Yeah? And the fact is, that was a big wake-up call for me. And one of mine is to live my full potential. I want to live my full potential. So I knew I had to start. If I could go back and tell my younger self, I would have started earlier. Thank you.
I'd like to ask, when you're working so hard, do you ever worry that you would ruin your current relationships with your friends, your mother, or potentially your son? How do you deal with it?
I've ruined a lot of relationships. I've made a lot of sacrifices. Yeah, it doesn't come easy. Partners, friends, family, health. You know, I remember there was probably 3 years where I was eating a meal a day growing Impra, a microwave meal a day. I would get a crappy little microwave meal, and that's all I would eat, and I would go back to work. I didn't go to the gym for years. I didn't work out for years. I gave nobody outside of my business any time or attention. Okay, and that was the choice that I made. I knew what was happening. I couldn't hold a relationship down, okay? And the fact is, my business meant more to me than any of those relationships. And that's a fact. Me wanting to build my legacy and my empire meant more to me than any of those things. Now I try and have a little bit more balance, but where I want to get to, balance doesn't exist. Yeah, it's either you're all in on legacy or you're not. I can't be half in on wanting to become a billionaire, because I've only got a certain amount of time to do it. So I have to be all in. Yeah, that phrase, are you all in on your dreams and your goals? How much do you want this? Yeah, how badly do you want it? And you got to be willing to sacrifice, my friend. And everything comes at a cost. Success comes at a cost. And you got to ask yourself how far you want to go and who you're willing to trade along the way to be able to get there. Yeah. And that's the no BS answer. That's not the pretty answer. That's the answer, yeah? But I'm not here to sugarcoat it. That's the reality of entrepreneurship. Has anybody experienced that in this room? Yeah, many of you, I'm sure, yeah? So it will be a tough ride, but if you're obsessed and you're passionate and that means more to you, then you will make the sacrifices. If it doesn't and that's not for you, try and preserve the relationships on the way. Yeah, who is really important to you? Who's going to be there in 20 years and who's not going to be there in 20 years? Many of those partners that I had in my 20s, I knew weren't going to last a long time anyway, right? So, you know, I wasn't going to change who I was knowing that those relationships were never going to last. Whereas, you know, I didn't see my mum. My business, my headquarters was in was about 5 minutes from my mum's house. And there was a period where I hadn't gone there for months and months and months and months and months. And do you know what? I'll tell you this story. I was pulling out of my office and I was turning that way to go home. And it was Friday night and I was so tired. And I thought, I need to go and see my mum. And something told me to go, yeah? And so I drove to my mum's house and I went and knocked on the door. She didn't know I was coming. I opened the door and she burst into tears. And I was like, whoa, what's happened? What's going on? Are you okay? Okay. And all of these things started to go through my head as to what had happened. And I went and sat down and she said, my mum's just riddled with anxiety. Okay, like, you know, we had such a hard upbringing with my dad. She was just always on edge. And so she was just a mess, a wreck, yeah? And she said, Joe, I can't go to work anymore. And at that time, I was 28. I was doing very well. I had lots of money. Okay, I was giving my mum money every month anyway, but not enough. And so I went in, sat down, and one thing that I'm so proud that Impra did for me was I was able to give my mum a big lump sum of money. Okay, and I said, right, you're quitting your job now. Okay, you're not going back to work on Monday. I will transfer you this money. I gave her a big block. Okay, a big 5-figure sum. And then I said, I will pay you every single month. And that was the day that I put my mum into retirement, and she hasn't worked since. And I've looked after her since. And she was 28, 6 years ago. She was 55 at that time. And my sister had just had my first nephew. And so he was about 1 year of age. And since then, she's had another baby, and my niece. And I've had a baby as well. I've got a little boy that's 2.5. So all that work that I put in, all that sacrifice that I made allowed me to create enough wealth to be able to put my mum into retirement, keep paying my mum, pay her mortgage, take care of her so she has no financial worries. But, you know, what would have meant more to my mum than any of that was the fact that those 4 years when your kids are little, okay, before they go to school, she got to spend that with my nephew, my niece, and now she gets to spend it with my son. So really, I sacrificed my time with my mum, but I gave my mum back time with people that she probably would have appreciated it more with. Does that make sense? I took the bullet so they could have the life, yeah? Yes. Mm.
So what is one thing that you feel like as long as it starts doesn't anything going on, as long as they kept up to that, would keep it going? What is the one that keeps that going?
The trait would be to always invest in yourself, personal development. If my bloodline gets smarter, they can't lose, because the key to this game is information. It's knowledge. Knowledge is the real power. Yeah, it's a game of knowledge acquisition, really. Growing businesses is about acquiring new knowledge. This is the business owner. This is the business. If the business owner doesn't invest in himself and doesn't grow, then he takes his business here. If they hit a great run and their business goes to here and they haven't learned anything else, guess what happens? This business starts to creak, stretch, and break, implodes, and then goes back down again. So it's a game of trying to outrun the growth of your business. Because if you're at the helm of it, it will plateau when you stop learning. If you look back at your business and say, this thing ain't grown, have you grown? Not the business, because you're the leader. How far have you grown? How much have you grown? So it's about knowledge acquisition. Now, I take my little boy, he's 2.5. I take him into events with me. I get him on the stage with me. I make him stand there. I hold his hand. And if I do a talk for an hour, he will stand on the stage with me for the whole hour. Yeah, I'll pick him up. He'll run around behind me. He's in a room full of 100 businesses. He's in this environment that is going to allow him to build confidence, going to allow him to build networking skills, business skills, entrepreneur. He's going to see it all. It's going to be ingrained in his DNA. So I think it's personal development, because if you keep investing in yourself, guys, you can't lose. You only lose when you stop learning. Coming from somebody that hated education in their teen years, it's a big statement, but I search every day for new ways to invest in myself, because to get to where I want to get to, I've got to keep growing personally, not the businesses. I'm not looking for the next $1 million idea. I'm looking for the next best version of me. If I can instill that into my kid, then and he can instill it into his kids, then, you know what, my bloodline will get smarter. And if that becomes their priority, then wealth and money will become a byproduct of the success. Or, you're paid in direct proportion to the value that you add to the marketplace. And when you acquire more knowledge, you become more valuable to the marketplace.
what does community mean to you, and what does it mean to get value and value distribute between communities?
Yeah, your network is your net worth, and you know, the more time you spend with great people, success rubs off. And you know, I break my time into thirds. Spend 30% of your time with people that have that are where you have come from, so it reminds you how far you've come. Spend 30% of the time with people on your level, so you can share those challenges, problems, okay, and so on. And then spend 30% of your time with people that are doing more than you, so that you've got something to reach up for. And so this club, this community, it will give you, okay, probably a good part of those second two. People that are on your level and people that are raising the bar that you guys can chase. And you want to be around people that understand, okay, and are supportive when things go wrong. I had a great mentor when my business was going down. His name was Adam Stott. I owe him a lot. He helped my sanity. He had a 50 million car business in his 30s and lost it all. He told me everything to do to protect myself legally and financially, and I did it all. And it paid off. I was secure and safe. I traded right. I got the right information and so on and so forth. So, you know, be around great people and have an environment where you can compete. You know, coming where there are winners forces you to level up. Yeah, inspires you to do more, shows you what you're capable of. And, you know, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Thank you. Well done. Thanks for listening.